Hello friends and welcome to my channel. In today's video we have a story about very talented OP who won the competition and one of participants' mom tried to beat him up for, as she said, faking playing. Subscribe if you haven't and I hope you'll enjoy these crazy stories. I have been browsing here for a few days now and decided I give my fair share of entitlement. I'm 14 years old and live in the Netherlands. My English isn't that good, please don't mind it. My father is Dutch and my mom is Vietnamese. I have been playing guitar for over 5 years and really enjoy doing it. My dad listened to a lot of Dream Theater and grew up with that. I play a lot of progressive metal. This happened last year before COVID came. I was almost 14. We had this talent show in the second grade of middle school and I decided to join. I played The Endless Knot by Haken, a great song, with a little improvised solo in the silent piano part near the end. There were no real awards, but it was mostly for enjoyment. There were like 10 other participants. 6 of them were girls that sang, 1 group that danced, 2 comedians and 1 other guitarist. I won. I was really happy and the other participants were really nice. I personally found one comedian hilarious that had some good jokes. There were a lot of parents that gave me a standing ovation and it was one of the best moments of my life. My parents weren't there because of work. One of the girls that sang was crying that she didn't win and her mom, came to comfort her. I didn't get a reward and the talent show was just for entertainment and fun. But this was so mad that her daughter didn't win. She went to the jury and said that I faked my guitar playing, although I practiced a lot for it. I got on the stage and she followed me. She started accusing me of faking in front of everyone. First I thought she knew the song and that it's being played on a 7-string guitars. I used an Epiphone Les Paul with single coils and 6 strings. I played the lower part just 1 octave higher and it sounded fine. But she never said anything about that. She also said that a guitar could never make such sounds and I explained that it was plugged into an amplifier with my self-made pedalboard. After that came this ridiculous conversation. The conversation went like this, roughly translated from Dutch: "How dare you make my daughter cry with that faking of yours? Ma'am, I didn't fake my playing. But a kid like you could never play something like that, there is no explanation. You're faking." Obviously she didn't have any real arguments. Why would I participate in a talent show without an award and fake something? After that, she went a little quiet. Then proof that you're not faking it. I played a few ladders on high speed and the solo of the song without backing track. At this point the audience was agreeing with me and they told the women to please leave the stage. After that she got in a very strange thing. I was wearing a Tool shirt with a kind of graphic back. "Because you're a Satanist." What? Yeah, I see that shirt. It's pure blasphemy. It's a banned shirt. They aren't even like that. I don't believe it. You're gonna manipulate us all with that devilish music of yours. I'm not manipulating anyone, I'm just doing this for fun. Freak off you, slur, I don't want to translate. Go back to your terrible worships. I'm not like that and also don't call me a slur, I don't want to translate. The jury asked her to please leave the stage. The daughter tried to stop her mother, but the kept going. The daughter was really embarrassed and ran away. The looked at me and said, "Look what you've done." She approached and tried to punch me, but I just pushed her away and people began to drag her away. While she was dragged she was screaming slurs. She was banned from the school and never heard of her again. The daughter eventually confronted me at school and apologized. I accepted the apology and we became friends. Went a few times to her house but never saw her mom. Never asked what happened because I didn't want to think about her anymore. That was my story of an entitled parent. Thanks for reading. I bet she would have accused Mozart of being a bad guy because a 6-year-old can't possibly write musical compositions. We went out of town and had a cat sitter, not stay over, just 2 brief visits daily to make sure they got their food and some human interaction while we were out since one is medically fragile. While out, the cat sitter brought their child and spouse to hang out at our place to give their child, a toddler, a change of scenery. We were not aware that this was happening while we were out. But when the cat sitter came by to pick up something we had gotten them as a small thank you gift, in addition to payment, the spouse and toddler had also come and immediately showed themselves in. The spouse picked up the cat and sat down with the toddler and allowed the toddler to pull the tail, squeeze the cat's neck and pull at the fur on the cat's back. The cat meowed and got away from the adult who had been holding the cat, and the toddler started crying for the kitty to come back. I felt awful I didn't react sooner, but I was honestly kind of floored that they came in for what should just be a quick item pickup and was also trying to make some small talk and give the item to the cat sitter. I picked up the cat and told the cat sitter's spouse that it wasn't okay to do that to the cat, and the spouse got really demanding and defensive about how it was the only thing at our place that the toddler likes since we don't have kids of our own or toys for kids to play with, and that the cat is young so isn't a big deal, and that the toddler loves animals and it's hard to find ways for them to stay entertained. I reiterated that it's not okay to mistreat the animal that they were supposedly taking care of just to entertain a toddler who doesn't treat the cat gently. The spouse rolled their eyes, said I didn't understand because I wasn't a parent, got up and stood next to me, not aggressively, just holding out their hand to take the cat back. Meanwhile, the toddler is screaming and crying and wanting the kitty back. I didn't give the cat back to the spouse, but I did set the cat on a cat tower out of harm's way, and being a cat, of course, she immediately jumped down and ran over by where the toddler was, who then picked her up by the tail and swung her into the ground and did not release the tail, the spouse had to. The cat ran back over to me and I put her in a different room. The spouse says, "See, I told you it was fine. The cat likes toddler or else it wouldn't have come back over." The toddler starts crying and goes to the door of the room where the cat is and tries to get the door open and is saying kitty kitty. At this point the actual cat sitter has received their thank you gift and is ready to go, so they scoop up the toddler and head out the door, the spouse giving one last scoff before they leave as well. Time to find a new cat sitter. Wow, that's awful. Can't believe a parent thinks it's okay. Sooner or later, if they keep that up their kid will get bitten or scratched. Did they not consider that? Sorry about the layout. This is definitely going to get buried, but I thought I'd post it anyway, even though it happened a while ago. My memory isn't the best, so this is only a basic outline of what was actually said. EK equals entitled kid, EM equals entitled mother, T equals teacher OP and me equals me. Okay, let's start. For background, I went to school with EK a very long time ago, and somehow I managed to get on his bad side. EK didn't seem to like me and would use any possible excuse he had to torment me and make school a living hell. Before we started sitting together in this particular class he had already been picking on me for years, so I wasn't excited and kind of expected this from him. EK wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed and he often copied other kids' answers. I didn't want to make his attitude towards me any worse than it already was, so I would just play along and act like I didn't notice him looking over my shoulder. This went on for a while until one day T finally held us both back after class. This is basically how the conversation went. "I have noticed both of you are getting similar scores on tests and are writing down the same answers in class. Would either of you like to admit to anything?" As I didn't want to be called a snitch, I kept my mouth shut and hoped this other kid would learn his lesson, but no, that's not how it works, apparently. OP has been stealing my answers for months, it's so annoying. Actually, it's the other way around. Why didn't you say this before? She's just trying to blame it on me. It basically ended up with me in detention and EK running free because the way it looked was as if he told the truth and I turned the tables on him. We were still sitting next to each other in class, so he continued to copy my work. Then it came to the next test. I had heard something online about someone who got their revenge by ticking all of the answers wrong in pencil, then rubbing it out last minute and rewriting them in pen, and that is exactly what I did. I ticked every answer far from correct, to an extent where some of the answers were even quite dumb. Then around 5 minutes to the end of the test, I went through again, rubbing out my answers and ticking the correct answers in pen, also intentionally covering most of my answers so that he struggled to copy them. EK's expression was a mixture of anger and defeat, as he knew he couldn't do anything now. It was priceless. After the test he came up to me looking pale and worried and asked me why I did it. I acted like I had no idea what he was talking about and he stormed off angrily. We handed in the tests and when they came back I got a decent score as usual and he failed miserably. T even made a comment on how messy it looked when he scribbled out his answers. "I bet you think this is the end. No, we're only just getting started. This is EM's time to shine." It wasn't that long after the test, maybe a week or so, when me and my parents were called into the school to attend a meeting with T, EK and EM. This is how it went. EM has contacted us about OP bullying EK. OP, do you have anything you'd like to say? Yes, what exactly did I do? You made EK fail his test. Could you explain how OP managed to do that? EM goes on to explain exactly what I did, and T suddenly realized who was really cheating off of who. So your kid was cheating? No, he already knew all of the answers anyway, it's just a waste of his time. Yes, EM actually told T it was a waste of her dumb kid's time, whilst basically admitting that he cheated. But he was copying the answers anyway. EM didn't really have much to say after that. EK was given detention and left in a huff, and I got an apology from T for the detention I was put in. Unfortunately, I don't have a really amazing ending, and EK continued to annoy me throughout the rest of my time at that school, but here's my story with EK and EM anyway. I wish I could see the faces of those two when the truth came out. OP's amazing plan worked like a treat. OP, you're a genius. So, this story requires a lot of background to be understood, so please bear with me. Recently, my MIL passed away. My wife's sister, Lucy, 40s F, has a mental handicap where she has the mentality and maturity of about a 9-year-old. She has lived with her mother her entire life and was, understandably, devastated by the loss. Because of her handicap, Lucy receives a Social Security disability check every month from the government in the amount of about $800. She and my MIL had been renting an apartment using both of their incomes. However, with the loss of my MIL's income, Lucy could no longer afford the apartment on her own. My MIL and Lucy have a small dog, a Chihuahua Maria, that they have had since it was born. Maria is now 12 years old. Lucy loves this little dog, and it is really the only thing she has left of her mother. My MIL had taken care of Lucy for her whole life, to the point that Lucy never had to cook, clean, go grocery shopping, pay bills, make a budget, or do anything for herself. My MIL's passing was not a surprise. She had been sick for a while. Therefore, for the past year or so, Lucy has been receiving services from a state-sponsored program, GP, to help her learn life skills such as cooking and cleaning. This program also offers housing assistance, but it was not needed before this time. How the housing assistance works is that the GP buys or rents housing and then places clients in the house, charging the client significantly reduced rent, with the state welfare program making up the difference. After my MIL's death, my wife became Lucy's power of attorney, allowing her to make financial and medical decisions for Lucy. My wife was able to get Lucy set up in GP housing at a cost to Lucy of $500 per month. This included all utilities, leaving Lucy $300 per month for internet, food, and anything else she needed. It's not ideal, but it's doable. However, she would be unable to keep the dog. The reason for this is EM, whom we will call Karen, because, of course. Also living in the same GP housing as Lucy is Dottie, 20s F. Dottie is also handicapped. She is non-verbal and walks with a walker. However, she seems very sweet. Unlike her mother, Karen. Dottie requires 24/7 support from caregivers. Lucy also has caregivers coming weekdays during the day to help her. Maria ended up staying with one of her caregivers, Sophie, until a situation could be arranged where she and Lucy could live together. Okay, enough background. Let's get to the entitlement. When my wife met with a GP representative and Karen to discuss Lucy moving into the house, Karen told everyone that dogs were not allowed because the landlord forbade it. The landlord she was referring to was not the GP, but the owner of the house that the GP was renting from. My wife asked if she could discuss this with the landlord directly, and Karen said, "No. I'm representing the landlord. So you'll have to just trust me." It gets worse. Even though Lucy is technically renting from the GP, Karen insisted that my wife sign a sublease stating that we were renting from Karen. The representative from the GP said to go ahead and sign it and that it would be fine. My guess is that, since Karen is paying the GP, the document would be unenforceable, and the GP rep just didn't want to deal with fighting Karen. So, my wife signed it. Karen also wanted Lucy to pay the $500 monthly to her, and she would give it to GP. My wife stood her ground on that one. There was no way that we were trusting this person with Lucy's money. After much arguing, Karen finally agreed to let us pay the rent directly to the GP. Then the discussion went back to the dog. My wife asked if there was any way that Maria could live with Lucy. Karen said, "Of course not. My husband is allergic to dogs." My wife said, so that means if your husband came to see Dottie, he'd have a problem, right? Karen replied, no, my husband never comes to the house. But I do all the time. And I can't be bringing dog dander home. Later, when my wife and I were at the house to sign the sublease, Karen mentioned that she had to leave to pick up her other daughter's dog. What? Karen also tried to get security cameras installed in the house. They would cover the living room, the kitchen, and the dining room, basically all of the common areas. Because Dottie was nonverbal and couldn't tell Karen what was happening with her, she wanted to be able to observe what was going on in the house at any time. Nobody was okay with this. Not Lucy, not my wife, not the caregivers, and not the GP representative. Some of Dottie's caregivers told us that Karen had asked for this on multiple occasions. She didn't like being told no. So, Lucy moved in without the dog. Sophie would drive her over to her house nearly every day to spend time with Maria. Every time Karen came to the house when Lucy was there, she told Lucy that she should just forget about the dog because she is never going to have Maria with her again. Everything having to do with Karen was starting to look a little fishy. Using public record search, I was able to determine that the owner of the house was an 80-year-old woman who inherited the house from her parents when they died. Using the same search, I was able to learn that Karen owned 3 different properties that she rented out. I kind of got the impression that Karen was trying to somehow get the house from the owner, but we never figured out what that dynamic was all about. After living there 3 months, my wife received a letter from the owner of the house. It was an eviction notice. Apparently, the owner had decided to sell the house, and Lucy had 30 days to move out. The letter also stated that Karen has decided not to renew the lease. My wife called Karen and, as it turns out, Karen got a similar letter from the owner, stating that Lucy had decided not to renew the lease. I could not help but laugh. It seems that whatever Karen was trying to pull on the owner got the last laugh. A few weeks later, Lucy moved into another GP house. This one is more expensive, $600 per month, but it includes internet, which Lucy no longer has to pay for, so it's pretty much a wash. Also, another resident in the house has a dog. So, after making sure that Maria and the other dog got along, Lucy has her dog back. I'm happy Lucy can finally live with her dog, and I like how Karen didn't get what she wanted. Because you can't always get what you want. Guys, if you end up liking this video, please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. The story is how OP and her mom made a perfect plan to help and save OP's cousin from her cruel mother. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.